What's going on, everybody? It's the Scene Snob, Mick Manhattan, and I'm here to tell you guys about the SceneSnobs.com. We're a channel of variety, comedy, entertainment, geek-related, sports, the whole nine yards. We cover almost every genre. We have so many great shows to choose from. We have shows like the Scene Snobs Podcast, BTB Podcast, The Guapo Show, the Sports Snobs Podcast, the PVD Cast, Jeff Dwoskin presents Crossing the Streams, the Three Geeks Podcast, the Fandom Effect. We probably have the only Matlock-based podcast called Matt Talk, and we're introducing new shows all the time. We have new shows coming up like the Ear Hustling Podcast, Carpool Shenanigans, and of course, From Some Nobodies, Twitching Upstream and Talking Upstream. So come on, check out the SceneSnobs.com, enjoy it, and please leave feedback. Like, follow, subscribe us, and just let us know what you think. We love to have all the interaction. So I, again, am the Scene Snob, Mick Manhattan. Check out the SceneSnobs.com. You can follow us anywhere on social media at the Scene Snob, and we will talk to you guys soon. Take care.
Welcome to Pulling Focus, a podcast about movies and filmmaking brought to you by Skyline Indie Film Fest and thescenesnobs.com in Winchester, Virginia. Here are your hosts, Brian Patrick and Mick Manhattan.
Hello, and welcome to Pulling Focus Podcast. I'm your host, Brian Patrick. Joining me, as always, is Mick Manhattan, the scene snob himself. How's it going, Mick?
What's going on, man?
Weren't expecting that, were you?
I'm doing so well. I better not laugh through it. I'm doing good, man. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Lots of news this week that is pertinent to our fans, our main interest, but our fans, who we are now going to call Focus Pullers.
Focus Pullers. I love it. I still love that name. That was a great name you came up with.
Yeah, so both of you guys are now Focus Pullers. Thanks for listening.
Hey. We have 4 people listen to the live broadcast this week. So we may have 4 Focus Pullers.
4 new people, I hope.
Yeah. Get your tape measures ready, people.
Exactly. Oh, so
that's an industry joke.
An industry joke. A graphite lubricated tape measure. Keep it quiet, boys. Keep it quiet. That might be a little too deep.
It is, yeah. It cuts a little deep there.
Well, I don't know what you do because you run so many damn shows, but I read the trades and the web dailies and stuff about the film industry, and there's just so much that's about movies getting pushed and who's been signed on to a new movie and things like that. All this sort of IP Marvel and IP DC stuff like that. So a lot of that is industry news, sure, but it's not about filmmaking and it's not about the core of the industry in my mind. This week, I found a bunch of articles that I shared with you, and I think really is something that we could focus on this week as Pulling Focus, as a filmmaking and a film industry podcast, focus podcast, that are really important to filmmakers. First, to jump right into it, theaters are freaking out about the potential of a $15 minimum wage coming over the next few years.
This one, it's all right. So after reading this one, when you gave it to me, I was so torn because I want $15 an hour for people who are working because it's a living wage, Right. But then again, after the past year we've had, especially for movie theaters, that's so hard. I mean, I get it with places like Alamo and things like that. Like, that's how restaurants work. They're going to make tips. But I've worked, and you have too, in movie theaters, and people who work there need that $15 an hour wage. I read something very important the other day in regards to the $15 an hour minimum wage. And somebody saying, like, why should a kid? A guy said, I make $16 an hour. Why should a kid flipping burgers at McDonald's make the same as me? And somebody pointed out to him and said, it's not about a kid making the same amount as you. It's about somebody putting in the same effort of work as you are. And why shouldn't they make it? If they're putting in a full day's work, why shouldn't they get a minimum just like you? it's not about the person, it's about the work. That really, not that it opened my eyes, like it's something, I knew, but like it needed kind of put in the forefront, not to agree because I already did, but just to kind of reiterate for me, like, yeah, it's important. We need to be basing this off the work.
I think in that sort of regard, I think people think the 16-year-old flipping burgers, parking cars, sweeping up at night, that kind of stuff needs to like pay their dues or something like that. You know what I mean? But the work's still got to be done. I am of the belief that $7.25, if you're paying somebody $7.25 an hour, that you're part of the problem. I think there are other ways to maximize your profits that don't exploit labor. That's just my opinion. I run a film festival, as you all know. I co-own an independent bookstore. We have 5 employees, and I've been involved in other businesses and stuff like that. And though we don't pay $15 an hour at the bookstore, for example, we do start out at a much higher rate than the federal minimum. And if you stay with us for 6 months, you get a raise, you get another raise at a year, and then it starts with evaluation after that. So you have the potential, if you come work for us, to make a better than minimum wage paycheck. And I hear the arguments too about, it's part-time and it's not going to make that much of a difference and things like that. I mean, there's just so much to consider on something like this, but I think it's a real problem to exploit labor to maximize profits. And it's just been done that way so long in this country that it's going to be a tough change for everyone if this passes. But, we're here to focus on movie theaters. And I spoke to our friend, Steve, who runs a theater chain here this morning. And I spoke to another friend, Charlie, who's a wine merchant in town. And, a layman like me thinks, well, the markup on concessions at a regular theater that doesn't sell alcohol is monumental, right? Like popcorn and soda and candy and all that stuff. It's super expensive. I don't think anybody would disagree with that. So I don't know what the markup is, but I would bet it's 200% easy. So, I mean, they've already tried to maximize that way. We have an Alamo here and an AMC. The AMC is staffed minimally already. They hand you a cup and they hand you a bag of popcorn. You go butter it yourself. You get your own drink. It's not self-serve like the Alamo is. So they're already cut back bare bones there. What are they going to do to make up the difference when they have to pay these employees $15 an hour? I don't know what they're going to do. They got no service they can cut out that I can tell. So I guess these places, and then if you sell alcohol, again, I don't know what the markup is there, but I expect from wholesale to retail, it's 40 to 50, maybe 60%. And then from retail to premium retail, it's probably 100% on top of that, just sort of based on buying the same beer in a bar as opposed to buying the same beer at a full service theater. It's a lot to consider, but it seems to me, again, as a layperson, not involved in the cinema exhibition business, that the markups on all concessions, all food, all booze, if you sell booze, is enough to absorb this $15 minimum rate. That is not the feedback I got from our friend. And, maybe we'll talk about it and bring it up with him later on some other show or something, or on this show maybe next week if he's up for it. But it seems to me that it's doable, and I don't know what all the pushback is for.
I think it is I think it's just fear right now, is ultimately what it comes down to, just because these theaters have been suffering for so long, and I get it. But at the same time, like, I think there needs to be a compassion for them to open back up, things to kind of get back to normal. I don't think you should rally against it. It's something that they should, you kind of just got to accept. Like, it's coming. So
yeah, I feel like you're right. I feel like it's coming regardless. I feel pretty confident that bill's going to pass and become law, and it'll roll out over time to give people time to adjust. The people who have to up their rates, how they're going to pass that on to the consumers, to their customers, to their clients, or how they're going to absorb it. And then us as end users as well, as the customer, as the client, will have to get used to whatever they do. So it will be a slow process. And I think it will have an impact, but I think there's room for it. I really do.
I'm trying to think how, like, I mean, it's much smarter people than me figuring this out. Well, I mean, as Congress, not really, but it's just, I'm trying to think of a way because, like, again, these movie theaters, they need help. And I'm not even thinking about the AMCs, which have been suffering too, like the mom and pop movie houses. That's going to be a killer for them. But how do you change it? You know what I mean? Like, where do you go from there? It's just so, I don't know. I don't know what the best answer is because we're coming off of a situation, COVID, and how it dealt with like the movie industry alone, because that's what we talk about. But just movie theaters alone, like this is going to be a huge blow. And on top of already having a huge blow with everything else. So
they're definitely being squeezed from every direction, so you've got the federal regulations and the state regulations for attendance in theaters right now, and some theaters aren't even open. And, you got the pressure from the distributors who own the films, and they're going to, streaming on demand, trying to shortening the theatrical windows and stuff like that. And now you've got the federal government saying, hey, you're probably going to have to pay $15 an hour. I realize the struggle is real from many directions, which gives me sympathy for, our friend and the chains that we love and the mom and pop independents down in Front Royal but I think there's a way. I think it can be done. And I haven't seen any, I think you said pushback or something like that. I haven't seen any pushback, really, just concern and sort of scrambling to get it figured out.
Yeah. I just think we need to figure out our shit first before we start doing that. Like, we're already, like, how, again, it's such a, people who are smarter than me, like, how much of debt are we in with all, and we still even can't get stimulus out to people who need it. We're not putting Americans first in any way, shape, or form. Well, I don't want to say we. The government's not putting any Americans first in any way, shape, or form, just in helping them through this. So now you're telling us, like, hey, we're going to make it better by doing minimum wage. Like, yeah, that would, but like, are we going to really bleed these businesses, like especially these local businesses who have been suffering for so long, right away? I don't know what a good answer. I think it's a bill that's important, and I know a lot of people need it, but I don't know that raising it right now. I think we need jobs more than. I think we need to have, and just to talk in terms of movie theaters, we need the movie theaters open so they can start making money. We need to have things stop being pushed back so the way they can show things to make money, and people making money in that way before we think about raising minimum wage. Like, let's get the economy working first, I guess.
Yeah, I can appreciate that. Congress isn't taking into consideration movie theaters. They're taking into consideration the entire country as a whole. Type of thing. So there will be winners and losers on the corporate level, on the independent level, and on the employee level as well. Because if you're paying somebody $8 an hour and now you have to pay, and you've got 6 people and now you have to pay them $15 an hour, 2 of those people are going to lose a job. That's almost a certainty. So those 2, they don't give a damn that the minimum wage is $15 an hour, because now they're not even making their 8. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's complicated. I don't want to pretend that it's not complicated and that it's not going to have impact on each level. I think as a whole, though, I think as a net, it's a good thing and it needs to happen. I just hope they roll it out responsibly, incrementally. It doesn't happen on January 1st of, say, next year, 2022, and then by February we're losing small businesses. You know what I mean? If I understand what I read correctly, it is going to roll out over 5 years, I think. But then you have to think about how is that going to impact potential earning income later? Like, is that going to minimize merit increases? Because now, I don't know. I mean, maybe jobs at a certain level don't get merit increases. I've been working for the government for a long time, so I am full aware that I am spoiled in that regard. Anyway, I thought it was important to talk about. I hope our theaters figure it out without too much heartburn, because we certainly don't want them to go anywhere. And I hope that they can keep every single employee, and that those employees, appreciate it.
Yeah, and like you said, if it's a rollout of 5 years, hopefully it's something that by that time the 5 years is in full effect, theaters are thriving, and doing well.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, because I presume now with everything that's been pushed back and pushed back and pushed back again, maybe they're just going to open up the gates come August, September, or whenever they decide to let these movies out. Or do you think they'll just dump everything at once, or will they still drip them out over time, and like maybe summer movies that were planned to be summer movies will be Christmas movies now, that type of thing for Christmas release, not Christmas movies.
I think it's going to get to a point where they're going to have to put them out almost like right one after the other. I think it's going to change things a little bit in the way of like how the year works for movies, depending on when they can start shuffling them out. Because I think if it's around Christmas next year, which I don't think it's going to be that, but I think it's going to be more towards the end of summer. So if they start doing that, then you're going to see a bigger September, October, November, December. Yeah, they'll have stuff for next May, but I think it's just going to kind of shift things a little bit and how things work, just in terms of scheduling. It's so unprecedented. It's hard to see where it's going to go, but they're going to have to, because I think we're getting too many people are getting comfortable not going to the theater but still getting the new movies. Yeah. They're not going to want that to change.
That's going to be a hurdle that might be tough to clear, to get people to go back to theaters. You know, there's always going to be film clubs, Psycho Cinema, me and you as movie lovers and stuff that go to the theater. That's what we want to do. That's what we like to do. But, you know, we devour films, not like other people. Like we more so than other people. We prefer that. That's what we want. Like movies are a big chunk of our entertainment life. And so many other people like to kick back on their couch and throw up their feet and just, you know, do it at home. And I don't know, answer the phone or surf the web at the same time or whatever. You know, you don't necessarily get that immersive experience. And it's an easy thing to get used to.
Yeah. And, you know, it's funny. I'm often reminded by my wife when she goes, you know, not everybody's as big a movie fan as you. And
blaspheme.
I know, right? It snaps me back to reality a little bit, though. That's like, yeah, a lot of people don't, you know, like when I'm like, you haven't seen that? They're just like, well, I don't know that it's a cinematic masterpiece. I'm not a movie buff. I just like to see movies. And I'm like, yeah, I guess you're the weird one. But, you know, like, I'm just like, yeah, no, it makes sense, though. So there are things that people aren't going to see.
Posers.
Yeah, 100%.
That was a joke. I am not a gatekeeper. Watch movies. Watch all movies. You do not have to dissect them and know everything about them. Just watch movies.
Go watch Citizen Kane right now.
Maybe not that one. Something else I read and I shared with you was the number of spec scripts that were bought last year. And I was shocked in a bad way. I just, so many people want to be screenwriters, and so many people write original spec scripts and send them off and everything else. I assumed scripts sold was in the hundreds, at least upper hundreds, maybe 750 and up. Last year in 2020, it's COVID year, 25 spec scripts were bought. Only 25. This article I found on No Film School from 2 days ago. That's incredible to me. Like, what? The first thing I thought, I was so discouraged. The first thing I thought was, well, why would I keep trying to write a spec script right now to sell? 25. Last year, no COVID, only 32.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know if there's just an overabundance of scripts out there, because if you look at all the numbers, like 2013 was the last triple digit. Mm-hmm. But I mean, then going from 2014 to 2018 in order is 62, 55, 75, 62, 40. So like it's been dwindling for the past 5 years, I should say. It's in 2020, I think it's probably at 25, more so because of COVID, but I don't know that that number would have been much higher if COVID didn't exist, because it just seems like they're not picking them up. But I'm also wondering, does this count? Because I didn't see in the article if this counts television And if they did count television, because I think this is just features, right?
I am working on that assumption that it is feature films. Yeah.
Yeah. Just based off what I read after reading the article, that it was based on just strictly on features. Because I'm certainly sure if you added television to it, all these numbers would be significantly higher each year. Because I know a lot of writers, just from when I was still in the business, swore by, if you want to make it as a writer, write spec scripts for TV shows that are already established, which is just kind of like the idea, so that way you can get your name out there.
So my understanding for writing a spec script for a television episode is that it's more of a writing example, not necessarily something so it might be something that will get you a job, but not something that they would buy to then produce.
Sometimes they do. Donald Glover, that's how he got his start. He wrote, he was a PA on...
It's not fair, all the talent that guy's got. He's an amazing singer and rapper. He's an amazing performance artist. He's a funny as hell comedian. He's got the best ideas.
He is a genius.
For superhero movies and stuff like that. He's a hell of a film actor and television actor. That dude's the total package, man. Sorry, there's a little Donald Glover love there.
And to join in that love, if anybody hasn't watched Atlanta yet, you're seriously doing yourself a disservice.
No kidding, so good, so good.
And every actor in it is a star now, and just based on the fact of how well they did in that show. I mean, they were great actors to begin with. Keith Stanfield is one of the best actors living. But just because he changed, and just to kind of go off on a tangent on him for a second, and it kind of ties into spec scripts, because a lot of people who write spec scripts for TV shows write them to their shows, the shows that they like, that they know, that they can kind of match it up to.
Right.
With spec scripts for TV shows, you almost have to like the genre of the show that you're watching to be able to do it. Like, love it. That's got to be your thing. He has, in that second season especially, every episode was a different genre. And he took you down a different world in each one, and especially horror. And I think that's what led to them being able to get different jobs acting in movies, to be like, oh wow, this guy's got range. This girl has range. Zazie Beetz being a Joker, and Knives Out for Lakeith Stanfield, and so many things for Tyree. My point being, going back to Donald Glover, and he started out as a PA, and he wrote a spec script for 30 Rock, and they loved it, and they made the episode. So yeah, I think a lot of times when you write, it might lead to a job of joining the staff room, and maybe they'll just pick apart your script.
Mm-hmm.
But I also think that people write for their shows, to get something out there written. It's almost like a business card. It's like, wow, this is great. Hire this guy. He's going to be a talent. Or refer him to another show or bring him with you. Mm-hmm. I know a few friends who did that. Yeah, they sold their spec scripts. It never got made, but now they're making their own television shows. Yeah.
So, I mean, I think that's a part of it in television in particular, is that it's an entree into a writing room. Not necessarily the writing room of the show that you spec. Sort of like you were saying, it's hey, this person can write. Our writing room is full, but these folks over here might be interested in what you could do. So, yeah, I see that.
Yeah, or you put them on a retainer or something, because I said, that's a good way to get in, because writing your own television series is insanely hard. You have to write the Bible. You have to write every episode. You have to have the arc, everything. And it takes years. Vince Gilligan, look what he did with Breaking Bad and then Better Call Saul. This dude had every aspect of that show in both shows completely planned out to a T, where there's no flaws in them. So, and like, even you go back to Dan Harmon, just on a comedy front, like with Community, everything was planned out those first 3 seasons, because he meticulously planned everything out. And it worked. It worked on so many levels. But not everybody can do that. And if you want to get a job writing and you're not Dan Harmon or you're not Vince Gilligan or somebody like that, or Donald Glover, you got to write a spec script and just hope to get into the writer's room so you can eventually make it that way, or team up with somebody.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting for sure, but those numbers really did surprise me. It looks like there's a more detailed article by Scott Myers if you go into the story, and you can visit that article on their website. But I thought there were more scripts bought every year, like in the 90s, even like the high point of independent film. It's like 170 or something. I don't see that number right now, but it was far less than I thought it was. And those were like the golden years for independent films.
Yeah, I think it's just I'm wondering too.
150 numbers 150 from way back when. I
wonder if the boom, because there wasn't like a huge boom of film festivals until after the 90s. I mean, film festivals go back a long way. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that they didn't exist. But the ones that did, you didn't have a lot of smaller festivals around until the 90s when people were like, oh shit, festivals is where it's at. That's how you get exposure and hopefully distribution. And one thing I do want to say, and back me up or shut me down if I'm wrong, but like I've told people in the past, I will hear people say like smaller festivals don't matter. And I'm always saying, yes, they do, because smaller festivals lead you to getting to bigger festivals. Just aiming high doesn't get you anywhere. But if they see that you were shown in festivals, that maybe you were a selection or you won a prize, they're more inclined to look at you if you put that in your resume when you send it into other, like the Toronto. And I'm talking about the huge festivals. I'm not talking about
like the big 5 festivals. I think they insist on premiere status. So a small festival like Skyline does nothing to help you get in there. It actually prevents you from getting in there. So the films that we get, if the filmmaker, the producer, the director, whoever is someone who feels like they have a shot at getting in one of the big 5 and then don't, we can often get those films submitted. And then other people who, aren't that ambitious, who aren't going to submit to Sundance and South by, and if they're not going to submit to that, they are looking for regional festivals. They're looking for Oscar qualifying festivals, things like that. So there is benefit to submitting if you want your film seen in a cost-effective way, because it's expensive to submit to those 5, 6, 7 giant festivals. That's bigger than the budget in most shorts, probably, to submit to all of those. Yeah. Maybe not, but it seems like it sometimes. So that's really a hard question to answer. I of course think there's immense value in submitting to Skyline, and everyone should, and absolutely everyone should.
I think that festival, and we've talked about this before, and anybody who hasn't listened to us is just an idiot, so it's okay. But my biggest thing on that is that's networking. You're missing out on networking if you're not doing it, because look at how many filmmakers we know who said, like, I've met friends and come up with them from film festivals.
Yeah.
And if you're not doing that, you're shooting yourself in the foot.
Yeah. I have aspirations that, one day Skyline might be a market and distributors will come here to see these films. It just hasn't happened yet. We do get representatives from distributors coming. I don't know that anyone's sold anything or booked distribution from Skyline yet, but maybe one day. I know for a fact that they get invited every year. I invite them every year and give them press passes or industry passes or whatever. So they're around, but this year the idea is that if they confirm that they're coming or confirm that they're available, that they will hopefully give a panel and say what distributors are looking for, what they're looking for as a distributor in particular, what distributors in general are looking for, so that, that information gets out there. Distributors are at Skyline, filmmakers are at Skyline. It's a chance to network, meet, and maybe do something together.
That's great.
Hopefully.
I love that idea. I do nothing to help in any way, shape, or form, but I do love that idea. So my approval should mean something.
It does. It absolutely does. But I thought, and maybe it's a trickle down, like so many scripts, like the 55 scripts that were bought in 2010, how many do you think of those have been made? Maybe none.
Yeah. I mean,
it could be zero.
But also you got to think about it too. How many independent filmmakers are just wanting to make their own thing?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. This doesn't reflect how many movies came out that year. Or
no. I just meant even if they weren't made yet, but don't want to sell their scripts.
Mm-hmm.
Because they don't want it sitting on a shelf. Like they want to make it themselves. Like that's wishful thinking. I'm not saying that that's the case. I'm just saying like it might just come down to independent filmmakers being like, no, screw it, I'll do it myself.
Well, I think with YouTube and Vimeo and all these other online streaming VOD options available to filmmakers, that people are just making it. Amazon Prime, I don't know if you can still do it, but you used to be able to, like, if you had a movie and it met their tech specs, you could just upload it. Like, they didn't care what it was.
Yeah, that's true. Streaming.
I think that went away, but that was an option for a long time. So granted, everyone who writes a script isn't writing it to spec to, what do you call those people? A studio. Mm. Some people are writing their own scripts and just making them, or they're just writing them in because they like to write them, or they don't have the confidence to do it, or they don't want to be a director. There's a lot of things. The numbers just surprise me, period. Because I felt like I was about to ramble on again and again and again.
It's a good point, though.
Yeah. You want to talk about something fun for a second?
Yes, I absolutely do. And I know where you're going.
Do you? Warriors, come out and play. I watched the Warriors finally.
Finally, dude. Finally. I am so happy. When you told me the other night on the showcase that you had never seen it, I was like, you need to see this movie. I'm so glad you watched it that night. Yeah,
we got off the showcase, and I had a bite to eat. I found it, queued it up. Everybody had gone to bed, lights down, backlit TV, had the bass up really high because that soundtrack was amazing. I was just like, I could watch this again right now, back to back from the beginning. It's so good.
And did you never know that that's where it came from? Can you dig it?
No, I did not.
Because everybody knows that line.
I know it from like a wrestler or something.
I don't remember.
So The Rock used to say, "Can you smell what I'm cooking?"
Yeah,
know what The Rock is cooking. Like,
I think there were people who emulated it a lot, but I mean, it showed up in like songs and stuff. Like, "Can you dig it?" Like, yeah. Eddie Murphy, I think, did it in a movie.
Yeah,
I want to say he did that.
I don't remember a lot of quotable dialogue from it. Except for what I just did when I started talking about it, and can you dig it? I do like that they called fighting bopping. They're going to have to bop their way across the city or whatever. I was like, that's pretty, I don't know, cute, I guess, for 1979 or whenever it was made.
Oh my God. And how much do you love every gang and how different they were?
Oh, dude, when Psycho Cinema plays this again, I'm going in costume as a baseball fury.
Yeah, that's everybody goes for baseball furies, man. I just want a vest. I want a Warriors vest.
Well, you can't wear a shirt underneath it.
I know. I mean, that's
Mr. Manhattan, we're going to have to ask you to leave.
What? It covers my nipples. It's about all it covers.
And if you do that, I'll be in the back. Free the nipple. Free the nipple.
I just throw the vest into the crowd. Brian, get that for me. I'll see you later.
Yeah, I gotta go. But no, I thought it was great. I thought the music was great. I like the 80s soundtrack. I love the idea of that sort of, like, it would fit. It would fit in Escape from New York universe.
Oh yeah,
like that's going on while Snake Plissken's up on the top of the tower, trying to get his glider to not fall off the edge.
And tell me how awesome basically the entire story is being told by I can't remember her name, but she was in Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego. She played the chief in that. I'm going to look it up, but the disc jockey.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the whole thing is just basically narrated by her, and it's amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that. I like that you never see her face. Like
Yep.
it's just her lips up to the mic. That's a cool shot. I thought it was really good all the way around.
Mm-hmm.
The acting wasn't superb, but the story was compelling. It was it had the potential to be really campy, but it wasn't. I like that the 9 warriors that went, they were, there was a jerk, and there was like the one guy, she said the police got him. Didn't he roll in front of a train?
Did he? I don't even remember.
Somebody rolled in front of a train. Oh, I guess I have to watch it again to confirm. So,
I think so. And you know what? I'm going to have to as well. Lynn Thigpen, that's her name. She was the DJ.
Okay.
She's been in tons of stuff. I just remember her from Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego, the game show. I love that's still, and we talked about this on the show too. That's still my favorite use of a song in a movie. Is
the in the city there at the end?
At the end when they're walking away. I don't know why. I was like, this is the perfect song for this scene. And the whole movie that we just watched, I was like, this song just sums it all up. And I'm not even like a huge Eagles or Joe Walsh fan. I don't mind them. I'll listen to them. That song just like, boom, it's my favorite mix.
Yeah. So I put on Instagram that I had watched it, and I got some pretty good feedback. Our UK buddy Mark, he says, David Kelly being the weirdest little angry oddball villain. Great stuff.
Oh my God, he's so terrible in it, and I love him. James Remar, Dexter's dad, for people who don't know, and he's like the jerk off in the Warriors. It's such a simple, like Western type feel of just these guys trying to make it home. That's it, and they have to go all the way through New York City. Like I just everything about it is so simple but beautiful and amazing, and I love it.
Yeah, I do too. I'm really excited to watch it again, and I want to make my kids watch it with me. It depicts New York. I think movies like that depicts New York. That's how people not from the area saw it, especially in that time period. Like before New York went through its Renaissance or whatever, Yeah. How old were you, like, the first time you went to New York, and what did it look like? Was it a scary place?
It was, it was the 80s. Everything, like, it's funny because it's so crazy. I grew up literally right across the water in Jersey City. So, like, I looked at New York every day.
And see the smoke and the dumpster fires and the bodies in the river.
Well, my city looked just like that because it was an extension. Like, people who were from New York worked in Jersey City, or people from Jersey City worked in New York. Like, we have a path train that goes back and forth.
Yeah.
And it's like 10 minutes and you're there. So, like, going to New York City, we did that. That's just how it worked. And I would go with family and stuff like that. And I had family who lived there. So the movies that a lot of people will look at New York and be like, oh, it's so glamorous. It's this, that, and the other thing. And it is. Don't get me wrong. That side of New York is beautiful, and especially more prevalent in the past, like, 20 years or so. Low crime, beautiful area. But when you watch movies like The Warriors, or you watch movies like Basket Case, or
Basket Case.
Well, yeah. But like 42nd Street, that's what 42nd Street was. Walked by hookers. Like, now it's the Mecca of Broadway and tourists everywhere and such. But it's like, yeah, no, there was X-rated stuff going on back then, like Taxi Driver, like all this stuff was real. That's what New York was. I'd say one of the most realistic looks to New York is in the 80s is Chud. No, I'm going with Chud, but like, and I'm not saying like the Mutants Underground, which probably did exist, but just the fact that it looked, that grittiness, like that's what New York was before it was cleaned up. And so I've gotten to see like all sides. I've gotten to see what it was, it getting cleaned up, and what it is today. Mm-hmm. So when I watch like The Warriors, I'm like, yeah, yeah, these guys probably wouldn't have run into cops too much during the night unless like they were looking for them, or in an area that cops would be hanging out in.
Yeah.
Because it's just how it was. And it was gritty. There were gangs that were everywhere. It wasn't that safe, but it's weird because like the Wall Streets of the 1980s in New York City and things like that, those types of movies, they existed too, but it was two levels. They were up here.
Right.
The rest was down here.
Like literally, like the island was split north to south, right? And then there was the vertical split, like the street, the tunnels, the street, ground floor, and then like everybody else lived up here. And those two tried not to mix.
One of the funniest parts of Crocodile Dundee when it comes to like what New York is that New York City had, that was like the up here, the vertical part where he was mingling with the rich and famous. But then they have the one scene where the guy comes with a knife.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, those are quintessential movie street thugs. Like if you wanted real actual street thugs and a look in that movie in New York City, you should have gotten guys from the Warriors. Like not the baseball Furies, of course, but like,
right.
There were, there was some embellishment there, of course, but there were realistic looking gangs back then and members that it was very real. Crime was definitely there.
Yeah. We could do a whole show on New York because I just love New York. The first time I went there was 2002, maybe. And I grew up in North Carolina, and my dad had traveled a little bit, and my grandmother had gone up on like one of those bus tour things. They take elderly folks up and they see the city and then they come back. All I knew about New York was that it was a good place to get yourself killed. So like I had no desire to go to New York or even a big city, even Charlotte. I was sort of trained to be afraid of the big city. Then I joined the Marine Corps, and my first duty station is Hiroshima, Japan. That's a pretty big city. And then we'd go to Tokyo too. And then I went to Bangkok, and I went to Hong Kong, and I was like, man, cities are freaking awesome. I love the city. I absolutely love the city. And I love New York. I didn't like DC when we first moved here. I didn't get DC, but now I have a better feel for it. And I actually like DC quite a bit. Yeah. And plus most of my in-laws live there. So I'm there outside of COVID times. I'm there all the time anyway. But so another question about the Warriors. If you were going to be in one of those gangs, realistically, not how you sort of imagine your best self, which gang do you think you would be in?
Oh.
And I know it's neighborhood related, but like I know for a fact that I'd be an orphan.
No. Yeah. I'm trying to think about it, and I'm like, I mean, my size might put me in a different bracket. I wouldn't mind being in the punk gang, but I would probably be an orphan.
Yeah.
I would definitely not be a warrior because I would not live in Coney Island. I'm choosing that one.
I would want to be in the punk gang, I think, but I don't think they'd have me. I'm too soft, man. I'm too much of a sweetheart. I'd be an orphan. I'd want to be like in a gang. All right, we're going to rumble. I'm out.
See, that was the biggest thing. Like the rumbling. And I'm now at 38. I'm saying this, and because I remember what my body could go through back then. But I wouldn't mind the rumbling. It's the other stuff that they'd be like, "Hey, you got to do this." I'm like, I don't really want to do that.
You'd just be the muscle, huh?
Yeah, I'm just like, I don't mind. I don't mind fighting. Whatever. Let's go beat them up. But I don't want to do that. I don't want to like break into shit. And so it's like I was just never interested.
Yeah, I don't want to be a criminal. I want to be a tough guy, but not a criminal.
Yeah. You know what? My gang would be a completely different movie. I would just be hanging out with Dalton and from Roadhouse. That would be my people.
Oh, Hannibal Buress does a thing about being a gang. He's like, man, you being a gang, you get to wear the same bandana. You go to barbecues all the time.
It is. You have like a family. It's fun.
Yeah. And which is why they worked, and now we're getting into the politics of gangs or whatever. But anyway, the Warriors, 4.5 easy out of 5 stars. Oh, so good.
All right. Well, let me ask you this then. What knocks it down to 4.5?
The sort of sheen of campiness across it.
That's
like there were gangs that were mimes. I mean, come on. Not the baseball Furies. There was in the big meeting in the beginning. I was like, is that a bunch of mimes? All right, that's stupid. and something else I didn't get, because I've never lived in a big city with metro and stuff like that, and I've never been part of a neighbor, like an ethnic neighborhood like Little Italy or Chinatown or anything like that. Like, they didn't know how to use the train.
Oh, no.
Is that a thing?
Yeah. No. Oh, absolutely. You know how many times I've been trapped in New York because I messed up on the wrong train schedule, and I mean, I live there, so like, you never really learn it. At night, the trains run on certain schedules. Like, there's express trains that you can only go to certain that will only stop at certain stops, and it's usually only like 2 or 3 stops within the city.
Right. That's why it's an express. Yeah.
Yeah, but whereas it's an express, even during the day, it might make like 7 stops. But
Okay.
in the middle of the night, it's like 3, and you have to figure out which 3 it's stopping at. And then there's other ones where it will only run from this station to this station, and you just got to figure out how to get to either one. Cabs are generally the best place to get around at in the middle of the night if you don't know what schedule it's on.
But not if there's 9 of you.
Well, getting off the island is almost impossible too. There's so many times I've been trapped in New York in the middle of the night because I had to get back to Jersey, and they stop running trains at 1 a.m. and don't start running them until 6 a.m. Or I have to take the PATH train to Jersey City, but my car is 7 towns over from that, and it's like, I'm not going into Jersey City and walking there. So you just kind of figure out your way. So them getting home at night, especially with every gang trying to kill them, is very plausible.
All right.
Especially then.
I was like, why don't they know how to use the train? I don't understand this at all.
But also being from Coney Island, they're not from, because I think they had the meeting in the Bronx, which is all the way up.
Yeah.
And they had to go through, I know they go to Union Station at one point. So they had to go, and Union Station's like a main hub. So I get why they were trying to get there. So then they were in Central Park at one point. So like they had to go into Manhattan, and getting out of Manhattan to Coney Island in the middle of the night is tough, man.
All right. 4 3/4 stars then.
That's the only one I will definitely defend that, because it is like, especially, and I'm basing it off of like 90s, early 2000s. Yeah. Just because that's as close as I get to at nighttime being in New York City, trying to figure out your way around. Like, I've done it since then, and I've gotten better at it, especially living there and working in Manhattan and such. But trying to get as close to the 70s as possible, I'll go by like the 90s, early 2000s, and it was tough then. So it had to be damn near impossible in the 70s.
Yeah. Well, all in all, very good movie. Very good. Highly appreciate the recommendation.
Oh, dude, I'm so glad you watched it. And now I'm going to watch it too. I have to. I love that movie so much.
Yeah. Every
point. And like Mercedes Rule is in it. Can't remember the other actress's name, but she's so good in everything too. Deborah Van Valkenburg. She played, she was with the Orphans, the girl they met with the Orphans.
Yeah.
Mercy, I think her name is. She became the love interest.
Yep.
She's been in tons of stuff too. Just everybody did such a great job in it. So I just love that movie. Oh, she was in Streets of Fire. That's right. She played Reva. Yeah. I love that movie too. That'd be a great double feature. Warriors and Streets of Fire.
That's on my watch list. I don't know when I'm going to get to it, but it's on my watch list. Streets
You've
of Fire.
Never seen Streets of Fire? You're going to think it's stupid, but I love that movie so much.
My favorite movie right now is Mr. Right, so I'm not worried about it being stupid.
The one thing I will say about Streets of Fire, first of all, I'm not comparing it to The Warriors. They're very different movies. Willem Dafoe plays a great bad guy in the movie.
If Willem Dafoe's in it, I'm on board.
Oh, he's so good, and he's so early on in it, and Diane Lane's in it, and she's so gorgeous and talented. Michael Paré I love Michael Paré. I want, it's funny because I talk to like publicists and I talk to other podcasters, and they're like, who do you most want to talk to? And I was like, Michael Paré. And they're like, who? And I'm just like, see, I love these movies he was in because I think he was fantastic. Like, I get excited for these guys who were like, did this movie, like, because for me, I want to talk to him about Streets of Fire. I want to talk to him about Eddie and the Cruisers. These types of movies. And people are just like, what are those movies? And I'm like, amazing.
Eddie and the Cruisers is so good.
Oh, he's so good.
Even part 2 is good.
Oh yeah. Oh, I know. He even
they're Jersey, right? Jersey Shore stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So you love them.
Oh yeah. I absolutely love Eddie and the Cruisers and Eddie and the Cruisers 2. Eddie Lives.
Eddie Lives.
I love those movies.
It was my cousin Greg. We grew up watching HBO and Cinemax and stuff together. Like, and he was my video rental buddy. Like, we stayed at each other's house every single weekend from like, I mean, we're first cousins. So like, since we were toddlers until I went away in the Marine Corps, I guess, because like we came up like being babysat by our grandparents, and sleeping over and making pallets on the floor. Did you guys ever do that? Like, can we have a sleepover? Yeah, we'll make a pallet on the floor. I said that to my kids, they're like, what the hell's a pallet? I'm like, it's blankets on a floor.
Absolutely.
Skateboards, go-karts, sports, like everything. Like, we were best buds. And he put up a thing the other day, and it was a shot of Eddie and the guys when they're like sitting on the car and they're about to do the gig, and Saul goes, tell them Eddie and the Cruisers are here. Yep. And that was like my line. So like, I would get on the phone to like, hey, let's meet at the skate spot or whatever. I'm like, tell them Eddie and the Cruisers are here.
I love it. So good. Oh, it's so amazing.
Eddie 2, Eddie and the Cruisers 2, Eddie Lives. Do you paint? Buildings. What kind of buildings? Big ones.
It's so cheesy. Like, my favorite line from Eddie and the Cruisers 2 is when he's sitting with the girl and they're in Jersey and he's sitting on some rocks, and she's like, what do you love about Jersey so much? And he's just like, Jersey's got everything. It's got streams, it's got farms, it's got cities, it's got scrapyards. Jersey's got it all. And I'm just like, yeah, it does. Yes, it does.
Oh, well, I'm going to put up a roadblock and stop this tangent because I think we need to watch The Warriors and Eddie and the Cruisers 1 and 2 and Streets of Fire.
I'll tell you, I will tell you this. If you love, like, because Walter Hill directed The Warriors.
Right.
And a lot of people don't know Walter Hill. And he's done some great stuff. Like the 48 Hours movies, he did both of them. He did Brewster's Millions with Richard Pryor, which is an amazing.
Not Richard Dreyfuss.
Yeah, true. He also did Crossroads, the guitar movie with Ralph Macchio, which I love for some reason.
It's a good movie.
But he also did Streets of Fire. And Streets of Fire, a lot of people don't fully understand, is a rock and roll opera.
Okay.
So it's a musical action adventure movie about a war hero who has to come home and save the love of his life from the villain, who is Willem Dafoe, Diane Lane, being the love of his life. And it's all done to rock opera. And I love that movie so much. I need to watch it. It's such a great double feature, too. I cannot wait. And I'm going to watch Eddie and the Cruisers 1 and 2.
Yeah. Well, my weekend is planned out now. Thank you.
It's such a good weekend, too, because those are so solid movies.
Yeah. Well, our little focus pullers, there you have it. You've got some news and some viewing recommendations for films to watch this weekend. I guess next weekend, because this comes out on a Tuesday. I don't know. I can't talk in the present tense knowing this comes out on a Tuesday. It throws me off every single time.
It really does. But I do want to mention one thing.
What's that?
It comes out this next Tuesday, which is the 16th, which is our 1-year anniversary of when the first episode of Pulling Focus came out, February 16th.
So says the calendar. I don't understand math because this is like going to be our 29th show, and I don't know how that works.
I figured it out.
Ow.
I figured it out. Okay. So when I was doing our IMDb and I was adding all of the episodes one by one,
right?
I went through in March of last year and April, beginning of April, we did episodes every week.
Okay, I remembered one of those, but not two.
And the Jack Shoulder interview that we did was an extra one in between two episodes.
I didn't realize that either.
So so when I was adding them all, it came down to that was the, like where it all just sort of went, and how it all lied to 29. But our official start was on February 16th of 2020. So this episode will air 1 year to when we started.
Well, happy anniversary.
Yes, happy anniversary to you too, sir. So the podcast will be out on Tuesday. Then we'll show it on the Scene Snobs and PF social media on Wednesday at 6 p.m. Not show it. You can listen to it and watch the pretty video we put together.
We'll show it to your ears.
Show it to your ears. That should be our motto. It's our tagline right in there. We show it to your ears. So yeah, everybody celebrate by watching the Warriors and watching Streets of Fire and Eddie and the Cruisers movies. I do want to pose a not a challenge, but sort of like a fun little thing, if we can. Pick out a movie, your favorite movie about filmmaking, or just a good one that you really like. Doesn't even have to be your favorite. Send it to me. I will send you mine. Mm-hmm. We each watch each other's. And then on the next episode, let's talk about them. So any movie about filmmaking, and anybody listening, please send in your list as well.
You've already seen mine.
Which one? Citizen Kane?
No, that's not it. Barton Fink, that's it.
You know what? I've never seen it.
No?
Nope. So
I'm pretty sure it's a Coen Brothers movie.
Yeah, I know. It's one that's always slipped by me, so I do need to watch it.
All right. Challenge laid forth from my end. Watch Barton Fink.
Mine is Bowfinger.
Eddie Murphy?
Eddie Murphy and Steve Martin.
Okay. Done. Watch it.
Dude, that's a really good mix, so I can't wait to hear what we each come up with. So sweet. All right, the challenge is the gauntlet is laid down.
The gauntlet is laid down. And if you're listening and you want to join us in the conversation, watch those movies. We'll post it out to invite you to participate. How about that?
Also, one thing I want to say before we leave, we are planning on a new show. So if you have short films, older or newer, whatever you want, send them our way. We want to see them, and we may add them to the show that we are putting together.
Yep. More details to come. But if your film is off the festival circuit and sitting on a shelf, but you want to share it with us, we want to see it. Maybe we'll program it on our new show. Yet to be named. All
right, man. Well, I had a great time. Happy anniversary to you, sir.
Happy anniversary to you. Everybody, please make sure to subscribe to the Pulling Focus podcast anywhere you get podcasts. You can follow us on social media at PFP Show on Instagram and Twitter. Facebook, we are Pulling Focus Podcast Show. Mick Manhattan at thescenesnobs.com. Make sure you go see his channel. He's got tons and tons of content. It's growing every week. It's so impressive. And if you have a film to submit to Skyline Indie Film Fest, skylineindiefilmfest.org.
Take care, everybody.
See ya.
You've been listening to Pulling Focus with Brian Patrick and Mick Manhattan. Follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Skyline Indie Film FE and at The Scene Snob. Please rate and review the show wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for listening.
And that's our show, everybody. Thanks for listening. I am Mick Manhattan, the Scene Snob. We always appreciate you guys tuning in and commenting along and everything else. Go check out this show or any of our other shows on thescenesnobs.com. Thescenesnobs.com. We love you. You guys are awesome. And if you would like, follow and subscribe to our social media. That really helps us go a long way. And please spread the word. Tell your friends. Have them come in. We love feedback and everything else. So everybody, You have a great day. Again, thanks for listening. TheSceneSnobs.com. Take care, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.